Hey everybody, Everyday Crypto here with Jason and John, sponsored by CryptoTaxShield.com. Jason, thanks for sitting down again with me today. We got some cool stuff to talk about.
John, thanks for having me. I appreciate it as always.
You bet. So the past couple episodes, a few actually, we've been talking a lot about Bitcoin for a lot of reasons. I noticed there's some major sort of some dips, some things going on. So I wanted to cover that with you on this episode and just kind of get your idea, get some ideas and sort of thoughts on why that is and what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I could, please, if you find any educational or entertainment value at all in this, please like and subscribe. It helps us help you, and we appreciate it. We truly do. Absolutely. And believe it or not, we are not financial advisors. Please do your own research. Please. Yep. So yeah, Bitcoin did dip down to about 34-ish. Okay. Right. Not that big a deal. There's two ways to look at this. There's probably two different reasons why this is happening. Okay. Or a combination of both. So the Federal Reserve met a few days ago, and the minutes were released. Okay. If you read the minutes, they say that they are going to start unloading their balance sheets. What that means is, when COVID hit, it stabilized the stock market. So they knew it would crash. They bought trillions of dollars worth of stocks, right? Which came to a shock to me because I used to think that was illegal. But anyway, I digress. Right. So now they're talking about unloading these assets at about $90 billion a month. Okay. Which will flood the stock market full of these assets. Mm-hmm. So investors are kind of worried about that. But I have a different idea. I think that news is kind of a nothing burger. Because I think that was already priced in, and I think $90 billion a month out of trillions of dollars isn't that much of an impact. I think something else is going on. Most likely, very big players see what's going on with Bitcoin, and they know it's going to move very fast, very soon. So they're probably manipulating the market just a little bit to get at this price, knowing it's going to be worth this much very soon, right? Gotcha. I think that's probably what's happening. I imagine you'll see a very hard bounce. Okay. Because I know guys like MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor and Terra Luna are buying all these dips. That's why dips aren't dramatic anymore. Bitcoin dips used to be super dramatic and scary. Sure. But now there's not, because there's so much big money waiting to get that on discount, right? Right. They're very confident in buying these assets, even on the dip, because they know the future of it is very bright. Sure. So I think that's probably most likely what's going on. But what's really interesting is what information is coming out of the Bitcoin conference. Right. And this year, it is big. So Bitcoin's 13 years old. Right. Originally, it was a handful of nerds sitting in a room talking about what they believe the future is going to be, and they were right. Right. But now it's this massive event where billionaires, leaders of industry, probably government people, right, very educated, self-made billionaires who know what they're looking at, who have teams of MIT geniuses studying this stuff. They're all now showing up and speaking on what they believe is going on and what the future of Bitcoin is. Gotcha. And some of the really cool information that came out of there, I'll read off. Yeah, please. That'd be great. So one speaker was talking about, I don't know if you know what the Metcalf Law is. So it's the price of an asset as a function of its user adoption. Okay. So a good example of this would be the internet. Right. So the price of the asset goes up as the user adoption goes up. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of MIT guys came out and they noticed, hey, look, Bitcoin's Metcalf Law is much stronger than the internet's was. The user adoption is about a 3x of what the internet was. And it's hard to really take that in because the internet now dominates our lives. It's massive. If you could put a price on the total internet global thing, it's unimaginable. Right. You couldn't put a number on it, right? But it started off very small. This is Metcalf's Law. It's not linear. It's exponential. Yeah. So that came out. I agree with that totally. I think that's Metcalf's Law has been very accurate in price predictions of assets. Sure. Metcalf's Law also shows that if you get a 3x in user adoption, it equates to a 10x in price. Okay. So that there's the exponential growth. It's not 3 for 3, it's 3 for 10.
Right.
And on this show, we've predicted we had a 3x, user adoption last year from 1% to 3%. Right. I think we'll go from 3% to 9% this year. And I think we're seeing it as we speak. I mean, we lots going on with Bitcoin. We've seen a lot of adoption.
Absolutely.
For those of you who do not know, Bitcoin's 13 years old. In the last 13 years, it's been the fastest growing asset 11 of those 13 years.
Wow.
It's outperformed everything in the stock market, gold, silver, precious metals, real estate, all the major players, 11 out of the 13 years. And this is even during massive crashes in Bitcoin and in the years where no one even knew what it was.
Right.
So there's that.
That's impressive, yeah.
Wallet addresses. A wallet is where you hold your Bitcoin. Digital wallet.
Yep.
They user adoption right now is at 500% a year. So it's up on an average 500% a year.
Crazy.
That's only going to get faster.
Oh, sure.
There's a thing called the stock to flow model.
Okay.
To date, it's probably the most accurate model to predict where Bitcoin's been and where it's going. It's been about 95% accurate to date. And their head guys came out and said that he believes that Bitcoin's going to be at $1 million by 2024.
Wow.
And right now it's at, 44,000. So he's taking
crazy.
Tom Lee, a very famous, very educated investor who manages massive funds. He's got massive teams of super geniuses with big brains that do nothing but study assets.
Yeah.
Here's was his opinion. The next incremental gross domestic product will be $30 trillion in the digital space.
Wow.
So right now it's at about $1 trillion. So he's saying there's 30x by, let's just say 2024 on that. So that's directly related to cryptocurrency because when you don't spend fiat currency in digital space, you just don't.
Right.
In cryptocurrency, it's adapted, it's made for that. So he's predicting a ton of growth in the years to come.
Okay.
So he also brought up a fact that I thought was very interesting. So in 1970, we came off the gold standard. Prior to 1970, the U.S. dollar was backed by gold, so it was on the gold standard. And during those years when we were on the gold standard, it was illegal to own gold.
Yeah.
Because the government wanted to control it, and that was their thing. But you saw after 1970, when the public was allowed to own as much gold as they wanted to, there was massive growth and appreciation in the price of gold. He's correlating that activity in 1970 to now with Bitcoin.
Wow.
So he's predicting a parabolic growth based on that, right?
Interesting.
Mark Yusko, another super smart investor who manages billions of dollars. He's very well known. 4 years ago, he put 20% of his portfolio and the portfolio he manages into Bitcoin. Right. And he's seen a 10x on that investment. And he believes that in the next 4 years, there'll be another 10x. And then within the next 10 years, there'll be 100x. I mean, and let's see, what else did he say? He believes that the innovations to come within Bitcoin are going to greatly outmatch the previous innovations that we've seen so far.
Wow.
And I believe he's accurate on that. I really do. I think we've only seen the tip of the iceberg on what blockchain technology can do.
Sure.
And I do think that Bitcoin will be ultimately the settlement foundation layer of everything financial in the world.
Right. Which
would make it massive.
Oh, agreed. Yeah.
Okay. So he also believes that the global tokenization of the world is not only happening, but it's coming. Mm-hmm. It's coming very fast.
Let me jump in there real quick. Can you define that a little bit more? I mean, what would you consider tokenization of the world?
Yeah, so a good example of the tokenization of the world would be NFTs.
Oh, sure. Okay.
NFTs are digital assets, and they're assets that have been tokenized.
Okay.
Right. Another example would be like the tokenization of your health records or your registration for your automobile or your mortgage or everything else in your life, your bank accounts, your anything can be tokenized, and it's actually more efficient to tokenize things.
Okay.
If your mortgage was tokenized, it'd be safe, stable,
right,
easily to probably refinance with a push of a button.
Mm-hmm.
Be way more efficient.
Okay.
Mark Yusko also brought up a point that I agree with a lot. He said that fintech is insanely outdated.
Okay.
So what fintech is when you make a transaction with your credit card and you buy something.
Mm-hmm.
That's fintech. He said that that's insanely outdated, and I agree with him. It's inefficient. It's not really cost effective. So, I mean, we don't really notice the cost effectiveness as consumers, but if you talk to the guy at your taco shop and he doesn't take MasterCard, because MasterCard charges him a percentage of that transaction.
Right.
That's the inefficiency of that, right?
I see.
Those percentages are pretty high if you think about it. I'm guesstimating, but I think I've heard numbers of like 1.5%, 1%.
Okay.
Your business, that's even right into your profit margin. It really should be close to zero. Really,
right. Well, yeah, not to cut you off. A lot of the stuff that I've done for businesses, it's like 2.9% plus like a 30-cent fee on top. So it gets, when you start getting into big ticket items, that's a lot of money. Yeah.
I mean, it's very considerable considering, lots of times your profit margin is, let's say, 20%. If they're 80% of that, that's pretty considerable at the end of the year, right?
Absolutely.
Mike Novogratz, a very smart investor. I forget the name of his. He has a publicly traded company out of Canada. Mm-hmm. He's super bullish on crypto. He always has been. He was there, and he said that not only is he insanely bullish, and he sees Bitcoin as a $1 million Bitcoin by 2029. He said something very interesting. That it's really the only negative thing I heard, but I had to think about it for a while after he said it, and now I agree with him, and I see why he's saying it. He said if Bitcoin goes to infinity, mm-hmm. that means that the world has collapsed.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
Yeah, so Bitcoin is the answer to everything that's inefficient and bad in the world, right?
Gotcha. So
your governments, your banks, everything that's centralized, it's inefficient and it's a power play on the citizens, right?
Right.
It takes power out of the citizens and puts it into the centralized entity. Right. So if Bitcoin becomes infinite, let's just say whatever that number means,
right?
That means that all the banks and all the governments have completely collapsed and everything else has fallen apart.
I see.
So it's bullish for Bitcoin, but it's scary
right.
for the rest of the world, right?
Sure. Yeah. It's like Armageddon style stuff, but you'll have access to digital currency. So
right.
Yeah.
And one other cool thing I thought I would bring up was that Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, the Shark Tank, who used to talk so badly about crypto and Bitcoin specifically. Like he used to publicly go on TV and say such horrible things about it, and I would never invest in that. It's all these things. He was at the Bitcoin conference and he was saying that Bitcoin is very soon going to be the 12th sector of the S&P 500.
Wow.
Okay. So there's sectors in the S&P 500, mm-hmm. real estate, energy, tech. There's 12 or 11 of them, right?
Sure.
He's claiming that Bitcoin can be the 12th. So I think there's $40 trillion within those 11.
Mm-hmm.
So that would put Bitcoin at 1/10 of that at a $4 trillion market cap, which would be a 4x from here. And if he's talking within the next year or so, that would put Bitcoin somewhere around, $150,000, $160,000 per Bitcoin.
Crazy. I
think he's right about that because Bitcoin's been trying to get an ETF passed in America for several years, and they just can't seem to get it done. Although Canada and Brazil and all the other places have it.
Sure.
I think once you see America have a Bitcoin ETF, that will be the next step into traditional finance, which would then open the floodgates for traditional finance money and investments, right?
Gotcha.
And so at the end of the day, they took like all the experts' opinions, and they said, where do you see Bitcoin, by 2029?
Right.
So in the next 7 years, where do you see it? And if you averaged out all of their opinions, and these are the guys who are extremely educated. These aren't guessers. These aren't guys who are kind of speculators. No, these are guys who've hired massive teams of insanely brilliant minds to study more things than even I could possibly imagine on the angles of value of Bitcoin.
Sure.
Right? Mm-hmm. And the average came out to $2.3 million per Bitcoin.
Wow. Jeez.
These are the smartest financial guys in the world.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good for everybody. That's great.
Just you guys a little reflection on all this stuff. So every year this Bitcoin conference gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Last year I thought it was massive. I couldn't believe it.
Right.
This year it's way bigger. And, it started off with just a handful of guys who just believed in something. Like Bitcoin itself was started by one guy. Mm-hmm. An idea after the 2008 housing collapse, the mortgage collapse.
Oh, yeah. I was a victim of that, yeah.
And he just thought to himself, okay, if we just make money decentralized and make it internet money,
right,
it would solve all these problems. And he just wrote up the code and started talking to some crypto punks, right? That's what they call themselves. Guys were at that time cryptographers.
Mm-hmm.
And he never took credit for it. To this day, no one knows what his real name is. He's never to this day taken credit for it. He's never taken any profit out. There's 1 million Bitcoins still waiting for him that was originally set aside so that the miners wouldn't take over the network and centralize to their hands.
Right.
And not one penny of that Bitcoin's ever been moved.
Wow.
So it's such an amazing story. One guy started this with an idea, and now 13 years later, you got the world's biggest, smartest investors showing up at this conference with their quant guys and giving all these ideas and that stuff. And you have corporations jumping in. Oh, one more thing that came out that I was unaware of at the Bitcoin conference is that the U.S. government owns 1.2% of all Bitcoin.
That's interesting.
Well, it says so much.
Yes.
Like they know they have to now get involved, and clearly they are. And they're not doing one, by the way. Everyone knows China has a ton of Bitcoin, and Russia has a ton of Bitcoin.
Sure.
These countries are quietly saying we're not cool with Bitcoin, but they're grabbing it. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's what a smart investor would do, anyways. They would say something bad about investment they're buying, so they can get it on the cheap. Right. So, there's so much momentum. I really don't think. I think at today's Bitcoin price, it is greatly undervalued if you take into consideration everything that's happening and all its real true value behind it.
Right.
I think right now you're buying Bitcoin at a massive discount. I do think 5 years from now, everyone I know who has not yet bought any Bitcoin is going to say, I can't believe I didn't buy any Bitcoin.
Right.
Just like everyone else says, I can't believe I didn't buy Google, or I didn't buy Netflix, or I didn't buy Facebook. It's so clear as day that this is an asset that you should own. Like it's shown nothing but positive growth. It has fought off every possible catastrophe. It should have never made it this far. Right. It really should have made it out of the box. It really shouldn't have. There was no liquidity. For the viewers who don't know, liquidity is so important because if you can't sell an asset you own, you don't want to own it, right?
Right.
And that's liquidity. Like you can buy and sell stocks on Robinhood with a push of a button. That's liquidity. There was absolute zero liquidity for Bitcoin forever. For first phase of its life, it should have never survived that.
Right.
It should have survived all the government attacks. Like for years, the government kept trying to shut it down and make it illegal.
Yep.
And here we are.
Yeah.
A massive Bitcoin conference. You got amazing news. You have all these super genius guys who are extremely bullish on the future of Bitcoin. So I don't know. For a guy like me, this is really cool. But for guys or people who do not yet understand it, I ask you, please just look into it because you're going to miss out on this. This is something you're going to regret 5 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now. You're going to regret it all, the whole way down.
Oh, for sure. Well, and I think we've kind of hit on this before. One of the beautiful things about crypto in general is that, in the old days, if by the time you heard about a stock that was doing well, it was probably too late, in that traditional finance world. But it's not too late. It's almost never too late to get involved in crypto in some fashion, Bitcoin in particular, because it's going to, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for now that it's not too late for people to get involved, so.
Think about this, right? There's going to be 21 million Bitcoin. Right now there's 19.
Right.
But the other 2 million are going to take like 140 years to come about. There's a thing called the Bitcoin halving that happens every 4 years. And that's where every 4 years, the amount in Bitcoin that's mined per day by the miners globally gets cut in half.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's somewhere around 900. I think it's 942 a day.
Right.
When the next Bitcoin halving comes, that's going to be cut in half.
Right.
You're going to see, if it doesn't already happen by then, you're going to see such a supply shock. There's only so much Bitcoin out there. 21 million, let's just say 5 million has been lost in time. So let's just say there's going to be 16, but so right now, let's say there's 14.
Right.
And there's 14 million Bitcoin. How many people are on Earth?
Mm-hmm.
How many billionaires are on Earth? How many millionaires are on Earth? How many corporations? How many governments? How many whatever else?
Right.
If you own just one Bitcoin 10 years from now, when it's the most scarce, pristine asset on Earth,
yep.
What do you think that's going to do for your life?
Right.
I consider it buying Manhattan real estate in the late 1800s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was nothing. It was super cheap. You could have grabbed it. Nobody wanted it. But now it's the most pristine asset. Like you would never sell it.
That's right.
I really view what's going on with Bitcoin as the biggest financial revolution in human history.
Right.
People will probably think I'm exaggerating that, but I don't think so.
Sure.
Our lives are being chewed up and integrated into the internet every day more so.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin is internet money.
Right.
On a decentralized level that gives you complete power of your own finances out of the hands of the banks and the governments.
Right.
What do you really value that at?
Right.
When you really think about it, what do you value that at?
Oh yeah. Crazy. It's good stuff, man. It's a good time to be alive and have a few bucks to play with. You know what I mean? So, no, man, this is good stuff. So just a last question real quick. That conference, is that something that the general public gets to access? Or is that just invite only? How does that work?
Yeah, you can buy tickets for it, but now it used to be you could easily just show up.
Right.
I think now it's pretty limited and very expensive to get into doors. But yeah, it's amazing. I'll be honest. Every year I learn so much more, and every year it gets so much bigger.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Cool. Well, Jason, thanks so much, man. This is good stuff. Like I always learn a ton when we chat, so I'm glad we get this all recorded. So.
John, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, we're going to do another one very, very soon. And as always, CryptoTaxShow.com. Just be responsible, make a lot of money, but also keep it. So, Jason, thanks again. We'll do another one soon.
You got it.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
You too.